Hi, one of the challenging hurdles faced by public accounting firms, corporations, as well as educational institutions is determining whether or not their training or educational courses are in fact meeting their particular needs. So in evaluating this, training is very important because it is very expensive, not only from a monetary perspective, but also from an opportunity cost perspective in terms that, every hour that's spent in training is basically an hour that is not spent in billable client work. So you certainly need to evaluate training on a regular perspective to ensure that it is in fact meeting your organization's goals. And now there are certain areas to evaluate in terms of making this determination of effectiveness. One is with respect to attrition, and there's a whole video on attrition specifically. But if in fact you find that your levels of attrition within your company or your public accounting firm are relatively high, may be an indicator that in fact there may be a disconnect between the training that employees need to meet certain expectations, and training may need to be bolstered from that perspective so that employees will in fact feel empowered to meet those goals and will in fact of course want to stay with your organization from that vantage point. The other areas with respect to primarily educational institutions, but of course it also funnels into corporations and public accounting firms, and that's looking at the training that is offered to basically transition employees from academia over into day-to-day client or company work. And really the focal point is on both the educational institution as well as the public accounting firm or the company, because the educational institution can in fact provide more real-world training, more framework training like we're talking about, that will allow an employee to use all the wonderful concepts that they've learned while they've been in higher education and translate those over to the actual workforce. So this can happen as part of their overall educational programs at educational institutions, or it can also happen as part of the transition when they come to public accounting or when they come to actual corporate America in terms of ramping up their training through this framework and really helping them to utilize all those concepts and all that information that they learned in academia. But that's another area that can be evaluated in terms of, are your new hires from academia transitioning relatively quickly into general client work, and are they doing that effectively? Is their work product sound to where they're meeting budgetary guidelines, they're producing work product that can in fact be reviewed adequately, and sent off to the client. So that's another very important area. A third area that you might want to consider with respect to whether or not your training efforts are in fact effective is with respect to these non-core tax professionals from the corporate side, really with respect to CFOs and controllers and VPs of finance. Do they have the requisite framework, the requisite tax framework that will allow them to answer the difficult tax questions and figure out what the questions are that need to be asked so that they can work with their tax service provider in order to understand the tax ramifications to their company and sign off on the requisite documents as necessary. And then also from the standpoint of public accounting firms and other corporations as well, consulting type, specialty type arenas that they're tax professionals, but they aren't necessarily core tax professionals, meaning they don't delve directly into the provision, the return, but do they have the skills necessary to understand the impacts of their specialty work and their consulting work on the provision and on the return so that they can make the right decisions with respect to their specialty work and that they can ask the right questions with respect to their specialty work as well. So these are just an example of three areas that we delve into greater detail in further videos on this website. But these particular areas, if you consider these areas, it will lead you to a better understanding as to whether or not your training, your current training efforts are in fact meeting your company's needs. And if they are, then fantastic. If they are not, then possibly there may be some adjustments to your current training. Nothing dire, nothing, grand or anything, nothing overhauled, but some adjustments like implementing the framework, which is a relatively easy way to increase effectiveness without overhauling any of your training programs. So if you'd like to know more about the framework and like to know more about some of these other areas, then certainly look at our website. We've got other videos on this issue, and of course we talk about the framework in depth, or you can give us a call. We're at schmendugger.com. Thank you so much and take care. Bye-bye.